You're listening to Up an Octave, a podcast by Sonivia, the podcasting agency that believes that women and non-binary people deserve to take up space in the podcasting industry because our thoughts, voices, and stories matter. Here you'll learn how to make dope podcasts that inspire, educate, convert, and most importantly, make your voice shine. I'm your host, Rue Spence, and I'm here to take podcasting up an octave. Let's get into it. Hey, hi, how's it going? Welcome back to Up an Octave. Today I am talking to you about why hiring a podcast professional is worth it. And this is probably a little biased as your friendly neighborhood podcast professional, but I am here to make your life easier, both for my clients and for my audience. So let's dive on in. Now, if you're listening to this show, hi, thanks by the way, it's because you have a thing to share with the world. Whether that's true crime, whether that's zookeeping, whether that's underwater basket weaving, whatever your thing is, you know that you have a message that needs to be shared with the world. And podcast professionals are here to make that easier on you. So as a small business owner, I know about wearing lots of hats. I wear probably 15 on a daily basis, but that does not make me comfortable in all those hats. Being a small business owner means that I am dealing with all kinds of taxes and numbers, and I am not an accountant. I don't claim to be an accountant. I have no interest in being an accountant. I promise you that I would not have gone into podcasting if that was even remotely the case. However, I know that that is somewhere that I need support. And so just because I'm really good at running other aspects of my small business does not mean that I am equipped to handle everything. So if you are like, I have this message, I have this story that needs to get out into the world, but I have no idea how to navigate the tech, that's where a podcasting professional who comes in and supports you can make things easier and make it more easy for you to be capable of telling the stories that you have to tell. And it's not just for tech. It can also be for time management, for content strategies, for content ideation. Those are all the big things that my clients come to me for, on top of just, hey, editing sucks. I don't want to learn how to edit. I just want to offload it. This is a huge part of what I do with just providing that overarching support in content management to help my clients make their show as good as it can be. So one of the things that I see most on the group Podcast Support Community, which is where I'm a mod on Facebook. It's an awesome community. It's private now, so it's really intentional about not having spam. If you're not already there, you should come hang out. But really, one of the biggest things that I see when people post into that group with the question of, hey, what do you wish you knew when you started out? The thing that I see time and time and time again in those threads is how much effort it takes and how little I knew. And it's true. There's so much back-end stuff that goes into podcasting that people who are just starting out don't know they don't know. And if you're in that place, you may be grappling with that right now. Or if you have a show, you may go, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember that. So working with a podcasting professional can significantly streamline your production process. A good podcasting professional is going to handle the technical aspects and allow you to focus on your zone of genius. Now, what that looks like is going to depend on the capacity with which you work with that person. You know, if they're just editing for you, if they are just supporting you with ideation, whatever that looks like, they should be capable of handling or supporting you in handling the difficult tasks that don't light you up. A professional can also help you set up a workflow that includes identifying your schedule, your recording system, your recording setup, editing, publishing, show notes, all of those things that whether or not you are taking them on yourself or the professional is taking them on, helping you to get those systems in place is also really going to set you up for success. When you outsource technical work, you're not faced with the stress of it. You're not faced with taking hours to edit when you've already sat with the content, you've already prepared for the content, and then you still have to release it, you still have to promote it. You're not done talking about it just because you hit stop on the recording. Like, if you can offload some of that technical aspect of things, it's going to make your podcast much more enjoyable, which is then going to keep it more sustainable. Something else that people come to podcast professionals for is expert editing and sound design. So this is probably not a skill that you possess unless, that's kind of your wheelhouse. If you're like, cool, I'm a veterinarian, maybe audio engineering is not your sweet spot, but a podcasting professional can help you by utilizing those skills and tools that they have to ensure that your episodes are polished and professional and put your best foot forward. They can remove background noise, enhance your audio quality, create smooth transitions, and just make your podcast more consumable, more enjoyable for your audience, which it's one of the saddest things to me when I see a show that has so much potential, that has had so much work go into it, and it just sounds bad, where I'm like, oh my gosh, you've got so much to offer and the world is being denied your magic because of how much it sounds like you're in a tin can underwater right now. And I talk so much about niches being busy. I don't like the word oversaturated, but the truth is that especially in a busy niche, when there are higher quality sounding options to listen to, people are going to turn off a not so great sounding podcast and go listen to one that sounds more well produced. That's just the long and short of it. And it's a bummer because it's one of those ingrained biases, but it's just a fact of the industry. Something else that your podcasting professional can offer you is consistency. Consistency is, of course, key when podcasting, and having someone who can support you and kind of bully you a little bit with love can help to ensure that you are staying on a regular release schedule, which helps the algorithm take notice of you. They can also help you manage the production timeline and ensure that your episodes are delivered on time, which then again, the algorithm, but also your audience starts to expect. They're like, where were you Monday morning? And if you're still sitting and editing because something went wrong, you're left scrambling and you're left disappointing your audience and disappointing yourself. Whereas that podcast professional can help you make sure that the episodes are out when they need to be. Now, when I talk about like a content calendar, something else that a podcast professional can support you with is strategy and planning. So making sure that your episodes align with your goals and are going to resonate with your audience. This can take a little bit to figure out what your audience is looking for. And maybe it's even going to take a little bit for you to figure out who your target audience is. But that's something that a podcast professional should be able to support you with also. Being like, I think that this is not in alignment with your goal, and then helping you to course correct to really connect with your audience and connect with the people who you are trying to reach. Your podcast professional can also help you with branding and positioning. They should know how to reach the people that you are trying to speak to, and they can help you do that by creating a strong brand identity and making your podcast instantly recognizable. I way too often see the same Canva templates being used as podcast covers, and it just makes your show seem generic. That if you can really get some strong branding, that's going to help you have a show that stands out, especially in a busy niche. So your podcast professional can assist you with logo design, episode titles, SEO, show notes, overall branding that feels consistent across all platforms. From Instagram to Spotify, it should still feel like it's your show. They can also help you with promotion and distribution. So that's making sure your show notes are capturing SEO, making sure that your social media is finding the right people because you're engaged on the right platforms, and helping you identify collabs with other creators that will help you cross-pollinate audiences. These are all parts of branding and positioning that your podcast professional can support you with. Having really strong branding is definitely key in helping you stand out in a competitive market if you are, trying to sell something, but also just to attract the right audience and help you really make waves in these really busy niches. Your podcast professional can also help you with monetization opportunities. I love to talk about Patreon, and I have had, at this point, about half of my clients go, I don't even know what that is. And then before too long, they're making some serious cash from that. So your podcast professional should help you innovate and come up with ideas and ways to use technology that you may not even know exist that can help you monetize. They can also help you develop a monetization strategy that aligns with your brand and will feel good to your audience so it doesn't feel cringy and desperate and just weird. Mrs. Frazzled, who I'm sure you've seen on TikTok or Instagram, has a podcast and recently put out an APB of I have had people talking about getting really wild ads on my podcast for guns, which is not our brand. And, she's like, how do I fix this? How do I help with this? And that's something that a podcasting professional can help you with and help you understand how all of that works on the back end. With successful monetization, you can turn your podcast from a hobby into a side hustle or even into a full-time career. That's somewhere that it's kind of if you invest in yourself, especially in the beginning, you can start making really strong habits that are going to support you in making something that can really help change your situation or can at least pay for itself in the future. Working with a podcast professional also gives you access to industry expertise and tools. So there are probably softwares out there that I use on a daily basis and take for granted that you don't even know exist, that just by working together, I'll be like, oh yeah, you definitely need to be using Levelator. And you'll go, what the heck is Levelator? And, that is going to be something else that you don't necessarily know to Google or know how to Google, that having someone who lives and breathes podcasts is really going to help you just discover these things and get these insights and get these kind of best kept secrets so that you can make the best show that you can. A podcast professional can also recommend the best tech for your situation. So I think of microphones the same way I think of skincare. You can have someone on TikTok be like, yo, I am using the Rode Pod mic and it is God's gift to podcasters. And you can have someone else who goes, oh my God, the Rode Pod mic literally sounds like trash on my voice. In the exact same way that you can have people be like, retinol changed my skin and made me so much hotter. And then you can have other people go, yeah, retinol almost hospitalized me. It's the same thing where your case by case individual podcast is going to require different tech, whether that's because the type of room you're recording in, your voice, how much background noise you have, all of those factors go into it. And the same way that instead of just crawling through TikTok at 3 a.m. trying to find your new skincare routine, don't at me, is, as unhelpful as just trying to be the best microphone, because in the same way that going to a dermatologist or an esthetician can be like, hey, bud, you have this type of skin, you should be using this type of product. A podcast professional can be like, cool, this is the type of room you're recording in, this is the type of microphone you should be using. And typically, podcast professionals are a little bit ahead of the curve on industry insights and trends. So because podcast professionals live and breathe podcasts, we tend to know kind of what's working well or not. I remember when the Roman Empire thing was huge, I was telling all of my clients, I was like, bestie, sneak that in somehow and sneak it into your show notes and you will see your SEO latch onto that. And it worked. It definitely helps to have these identified trends and be able to use them to your favor when it makes sense. So, your podcast professional is going to do the legwork of staying informed about what the developments are and help you give a competitive edge to the people who don't maybe have the bandwidth or the time or energy or resources or whatever to identify those trends all the time. And of course, your podcast professional should be your biggest fan and your biggest cheerleader. So when I get the pleasure of editing someone's show, I'm the first person that's not them who's heard it. And that never gets old for me. That is such a gift. It is so vulnerable. I share inside jokes with my clients. It's just a really wonderful and nuanced experience to get to have. And because of that, I'm just so giddy for all of the shows that I work with. And that's part of how I select my clients is who am I just so jazzed to know exists on this planet? And so your podcast professional should really be your biggest cheerleader. And that's not to say that, you're always going to agree with them or that they're not going to sometimes rough you up a little bit with tough love and constructive, loving criticism. but your podcast professional should be the first person who goes to bat for you. They can help you find motivation when things feel a little tough. They can help be like, hey, I noticed you haven't sent me the episode yet. And just help to be that personal trainer. That's, really how I see myself. I was working with some clients for a while who ended up ending their show, honestly, in part on my recommendation, which it's part of that tough love. But they had unrealistic expectations because of how busy they were, that they were like, we don't have a lot of bandwidth to put into this show. And, that's part of why we're bringing you on board. And I'm like, awesome, take over the social media. Life's great. But when they weren't showing up prepared to record their episodes, I'm like, I can only work with what you've given me. And, I really see podcast professionals as like a personal trainer where they are equipped to support you, to teach you, and to guide you to make sure that you don't, get your neck caught under a barbell. But they are not plastic surgeons who will do the work for you. So your podcast professional is someone who can support you, can guide you, but they are not going to be someone who's going to do the work for you. All right, that is it for today. I hope that you have gotten a little clarity on if you are ready to outsource, if you are ready to get some support with your podcast, whether it's from me, whether it's from someone else amazing in this space. If you would like to chat more, you know where to find me, but I'll say it again. You can shoot me an email directly at rue.sonivia@gmail.com. You can come hang out with me on Instagram at Sonivia Studios. If you don't necessarily want to hire somebody, but you want to get more confident with editing for yourself and you want the expertise of a podcasting professional, I do have my guide for how to edit with Audacity, which has previously only been available to my clients. You can find that on my website, sonivia.com. And make sure you peep the show notes because I do have a code that gets you a little bit back as just a thank you for listening and for supporting the show, for supporting my small business and my dreams, and for believing in yourself enough to make the best podcast you can. So that's it for today. I'll see you next week. I just want to say one more time, thank you so much for helping me take podcasting up an octave.